You don't have a styling problem if you're under 5'2". You have a proportion problem no one ever explained to you. There's a very specific kind of frustration that comes with getting dressed when you are under 5'2". It's not dramatic, it's not obvious to anyone else, but it builds quietly every single morning. Sleeves that take over your hands, pants that were cropped on someone else but become full length on you, shoes you love but somehow make you feel visually compressed the moment you put them on. And what's interesting is that none of this is about size in the way that people assume. It's not about being small, it's about proportion. A few months ago, I had a client who was just under 5'2". Her biggest concerns were the usual suspects: sleeves, pants length, and shoe. But the way she described her frustration was with a kind of exhaustion that felt familiar, even if you're not her height. When I visited her closet, we decided to treat it less like a styling session and more like an investigation. Not how do we fix her style, but what prevents her from expressing it fully. So today I'm using my own 5'4" frame as a reference to illustrate how really important proportion is, and here's what surfaced. There's a specific annoyance in sleeves that are just too long. Not dramatically so, just enough that your hands disappear slightly. Enough that every jacket starts to feel like it was borrowed from someone else's life. My client's leather jacket was the perfect example. Beautiful piece, strong shape, but the sleeves swallow her wrists. And leather isn't forgiving the usual way. You can't casually roll it the way you would with cotton or denim. It resists you. It remembers every fold. So the instinct is usually leave it alone, or worse, stop wearing it. But there's a quieter solution here. Instead of fighting the fabric, we worked with its rigidity. We didn't try to make the sleeve neat. We made it intentional. A soft, deliberate tuck starting a few inches up from the hem. Rolled just enough so the wrist bone becomes visible. Not polished, not symmetrical, just placed. And there's something important here. When clothes are slightly off in a deliberate way, they stop reading as ill-fitting and start reading as styled. We paired the jacket with a clean skirt that sits just below the knee. The second best option here would be just above the knee. And the same color bodysuit underneath, which creates an uninterrupted line. And black tights create continuity with the black pointed toe shoes, blending everything in. The goal was never perfection, it was coherence. This is the second recurring frustration, length that almost works. Not too long enough functional sense, but long enough to disrupt proportion. A midi skirt that cuts the body at the wrong point. A trouser hem that gathers slightly where it shouldn't. A silhouette that feels heavier than intended. My client wear mid-length skirts often, but they rarely feel like they sit correctly on her frame. And what's interesting is that most advice would say, hem everything. But that's not always the most flexible answer. Instead of altering the bottom, we worked from the top. A control roll at the waistband, especially effective with elastic or structured waists, changes the entire proportion of the garment. It shortens without erasing the original design. It also allows movement in how the piece folds against shoes. We style it with a slightly boxy jacket worn as a top, which helps disguise the construction of the waistband adjustment. In other moments, a tucked-in knit and a belt does the same job, cleaning the midsection visually while allowing the skirt to shift into a more intentional length. And suddenly, the shoes weren't competing with the hem anymore. They were part of the line. This is one of the most common hesitations. Flat shoes are easy, comfortable, necessary. But for petite proportions, some of them can sometimes feel visually dominant, like they're taking too much of the frame. And instinct becomes avoidance. Heels or thinner shoes or overly delicate alternatives that don't actually match the way you want to live. But loafers, for example, aren't the problem. The proportions around them are. Instead of changing the shoe, you change what leads into it. A shorter jacket is one of the most effective tools here. Not because it's trendy, but because it rebalances the vertical line of the body. When the torso is slightly lifted visually, the shoe no longer sits at the end of a long drop. It sits in proportion. Pair that with ankle trousers that land above the ankle, and suddenly the loafers feel intentional, not heavy. There's also a quiet rule here worth keeping in mind. Ankle-length silhouettes tend to interrupt more than flatter in petite proportions. They split the leg in a way that flattens the vertical line rather than extending it. It's not a rule to obey, but it's a pattern worth noticing. This is the most intangible one. Sometimes everything is technically right. The pieces are good, the styling makes sense, nothing is wrong, and yet something feels slightly disconnected. This is usually a proportion tension, not a styling error. Petite styling benefits from visual echoes. A trim repeated in tights, a pattern that echoes somewhere in the outfit, a texture that returns in a second element. In my client's case, the blue of the shirt was echoed in the sandals, which then created a visual rhythm that the eye could follow. And when the eye can follow something, it reads as intentional. Even if nothing about it is perfect. This one was subtle. My clients love wearing a light monochromatic outfit because she thinks it's elongating. And on paper, it should. And yet, the body looks a little shorter, a little heavier, slightly compressed. The pieces are good, the palette is cohesive, nothing is technically wrong. What's happening isn't the outfit itself, it's how the eye is reading it. Light tones, especially when worn head to toe, don't create enough visual anchoring. Instead of elongating, they can blur the outline of the body, making the frame feel more compact. Add color blocking in the wrong places, and the body gets visually cut, which shortens it even more. This is a proportion issue, not a styling mistake. Petite proportions benefit from a clear visual base and a point of lift. So we use the darker bottom to ground the frame and create a lengthening effect around the legs. A lighter top, especially when slightly cropped, pulls the eyes upward and restores balance. That contrast gives the eye direction. And when the eye knows where to go, the silhouette reads as longer, lighter, and more intentional, even if the outfit itself is simple. What I loved most about this session wasn't that we solved everything. It's that we stopped treating proportion like a limitation and started treating it like a language. Because when you understand how your body interrupts fabric, you also start to understand how to make that interruption interesting. Not invisible, not corrected, just considered. And that's really the shift. If you want to dive deeper into how to look taller, you can watch this video here. Thanks for watching. And if you're thinking I have something like that too, you probably do. Bring it into your wardrobe. Start here. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.